Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psychreg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back, Richard. We're going to talk about Pokemon Go today.
I won't say anything.
I was so happy when I saw this article because we joke about it a lot. And so this was an article in a online magazine called 9 to 5 Mac. And I've never...
9 to 5 mac and cheese.
No,
That's
9
what
to
I
5 Mac.
No, when you sent this to me, my first thought, I just shook my head and I said, he just can't help himself.
No, I couldn't help myself. But So I was reading this article, and it linked to an original study. And where was that study published, Richard?
Nature magazine.
Nature.
And I don't know what...
Richard, talk to me about how prestigious Nature is. What kind of things Nature publishes.
I learned from a friend that Nature usually is reserved for end-of-career acknowledgments for jobs well done. Uh-huh. That's what Nature publishes, original work by leaders in the field. Mm-hmm. So the fact that this was in Nature, I want to say, is a step down for the publication, possibly. No, I'm shocked that this was in Nature because you know how I feel about Nature.
Right.
I mean, it's publishes, world-renowned scholars publish in Nature.
Yeah.
So this is not a trifle, the fact that this appeared in Nature. And I'm going to have to read more about this, the original,
right?
And see why it got published there.
There was an original report study published in Scientific Reports from earlier this year, and they looked at Pokemon Go and the playing of Pokemon Go as it relates to psychological distress in workers, as well as physical complaints in workers, and adult workers. And I think that's an important aspect, is adult workers. And now it was a retrospective study, which means that they sort of looked at where they were now and looked back at how they had played. And so it wasn't what they call a prospective study, which is where we say, okay, we're going to start everybody at the same place, and from here on we're going to control things a little bit better. So that said, it was still published in a
even though it was a retrospective study. Now the data analysis they did was pretty sophisticated.
Right.
Whoever did the data analysis knows what he or she is doing. But the fact that it was a retrospective study and still got published means that it must be of some value for some reason.
Right. So
if you can get past the Pokemon part, I mean, this is not child's play.
Right. The study.
Right.
So what they basically did was they looked at these completed. There were 246 people who completed the study, and
which is also pretty impressive.
Well, no, there were 246 who continued to play Pokemon Go, and that was. And what they did was they were looking at, again, their reported psychological distress and some of their physical complaints and things like that. The original study included almost 4,000 full-time workers. Right. So we're not talking about a significant portion. I mean, we're about 10% of the original population, because this is a subset of participants from a bigger study, and researchers do that very often.
Yeah,
they'll have this larger study, and then they'll pull sort of pieces out of it to answer other questions. So they call it data mining.
Right.
But here we were talking about 246 adult employees who play Pokemon Go, and it was defined as playing Pokemon Go for at least a month or more. And again, basically, what they found is that people who played Pokemon Go tended to report fewer psychological distressors and fewer smaller physical complaints, physical complaints.
Right. So what is it about Pokemon Go? Where's the magic in Pokemon Go?
I think that there's I think that there's two things, and one of them is what we were talking about off camera before we started,
right.
and that is, it is really it doesn't require a lot of focus. It doesn't require a lot of decision making. It doesn't require a lot of. It's not stressful. It's something that brings excitement. Right now, and I still play Pokemon Go, but right now they are releasing these special ones called Legendary, right? And so there is a lot of excitement when there's one available that you can go and you can try to catch and everything, and it is it increases all of those good hormones and chemicals in your body when you see it and you're going to go try to catch it. So I think that that's one thing. I think that a second thing that it does is, and I've noticed this a lot more over the past couple of months of playing since they started with these legendaries, because, not to go into detail, you can't just catch them anywhere. They show up at gyms and you have to go there and you have to battle them to catch them. But you can't do it by yourself.
Right.
And so it has created these entire communities now of people. I'm in this chat group where there's over 100 people on in this chat group, and they'll chat and they'll say, hey, there's one about to show up here, and 15 or 20 people will go and meet there, and they'll talk and they'll hang out for a little bit while they're waiting for it, and then they'll battle it, and then they'll say, hey, there's another one showing up over here, and so then they'll go there. And so it's creating these friendships, these relationships that would have, I've met people now that I would have never crossed paths with probably any other time in my life.
And the fact that you're doing the same activity means that you share some other interests. Right. So it's not, there's something pulling you together. So you're automatically in a group of people with shared interests that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Right. So there's a social aspect.
There's a social aspect.
But the first is there's a diversion, distraction. You're taking yourself out of your regular work life and doing something else. If you go fishing and you relax, it has the same effect. Thing. But to go fishing requires a half a day.
It's the positive anticipation.
Right, right. And you're doing something. We talked about meditation in an earlier podcast. And we talked about moving away from the stressors. What Pokemon Go does, it takes you away from the stressors. It provides your brain the opportunity to do something totally unrelated, totally fun. And it's not stressful to play Pokemon. It's fun. Okay? Yeah. But what you're doing is you're giving your brain a rest from the normal day-to-day stressors. Okay, that's the value of it. Yeah. Doesn't matter how you do that. Doesn't matter whether you use Pokemon or fishing or tennis or whatever. It's just that Pokemon allows you to do it quickly. Right. How long does it take when you're doing one of these things? Take a few minutes.
You're right, and it depends. Some people
or a half hour.
Some people will spend their an entire day doing it. Right. And I think that this is sort of the third, if we're at the third thing, that it does for you, is that it gets you out.
That's right. Oh, they talked about that in the study. Right. You burn calories and take your steps.
Because you have to, to hatch eggs, for example, you have to walk a certain, or you have to travel a certain distance, and you have to, they've really, the game developers are really bright people. Yes. Because they have made it to where, like, if you're traveling over 15 or 20 miles an hour, it doesn't count as traveling, because they know that you're in a car or that you're doing something. So you have to be walking or on a bicycle or something like that to be able to even count movement of the distance to be able to hatch the eggs and things like that. So it's really... so it's encouraging you to be physically active. It's encouraging you to get out of the house.
To get away from your desk, to get out of your house, to go do something else. Right. And again, it almost doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're de-stressing and you're making your brain do something else.
Right. Let me tell you when I noticed it massively as primarily a stress reducer was last week. After the hurricane.
Oh, after the hurricane, you went out.
People would go out, and I would see people in the chats, and I didn't have a chance to go out, but I would see people in the chats talking about, guys, I got to get out of the house. Anybody doing any raids or anybody going out and doing anything, because they just had to, escape the stress that was the, hurricane cleanup and everything.
And it gave you something to do,
right?
Rather than just walk around looking at the fallen trees and destroyed homes. It gave you something else to do that took your brain someplace else. We have these things called brain breaks in schools that we have teachers do. That's what this is. This is a brain break.
That's all it is.
It puts you in a different place. It allows you to unplug. You're not doing email. You're not doing texting. You're not answering your phone. You're out doing something fun. And it almost, people used to say, well, I'm not going to golf. I'm not going to chase a ball all over the course. That's a good way to ruin it. You ruin a good walk by playing golf. No, golf takes your mind someplace else.
Yeah.
And it allows your brain to sort of reorganize and relax. And then you can get back to it with renewed enthusiasm.
Yeah. So I think that it's, they talk about in the study that they need to do more. They need to do more studies and really look at it, because this was a limited study. But I think it's helping us understand. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to look to see. I think it was when we talked to Dr. Madigan on August 26th was that podcast where we talked about video games, and how we can use video games now for very positive things.
That's right.
And this is one of those examples of how we can use video games in a way to, we joke and we tease sometimes people who play some of these games, or, we try to limit some of our kids' interactions with some of these games. And if we're using it the right way, they can have some pretty significant positive effects.
Right. And he talked particularly about how he and his daughter will play video games. It brings them together in ways that they might not otherwise come together.
Yeah, absolutely. So
there's a social aspect, there's a physical health aspect, exercise aspect. Mainly, though, it pulls you away from the things that are causing you so much stress, and it gives your brain an opportunity to do something else.
Right.
Relax, rest, and then get back to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So get out and play Pokemon Go. You don't have to play Pokemon Go.
No, I don't think I'll do Pokemon Go.
Choose Team Mystic, because that's the team you want to be on.
Do I?
So
they won't let me.
It's the blue team. So
they have a minor league team, like a developmental league. No. Okay.
All right. That is it for today. All right. So that's it. So go out and play, walk. Go hatch some eggs. Yeah, get out
and do something.
Play the game with your kids. If they're playing it, play with them.
That's true. That's the easiest way to do it. If you have kids who are playing it, rather than worrying about them, play it with them.
Yeah.
Again, gives you a great time together.
It is fun. So, all right. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.